Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead Season 7. And this video is going to be doing a review for the season premiere called The Day Will Come When You Won't Be. If you don't want to know anything about this episode, if you don't want to know who Negan killed, if you don't want to know the events, then I suggest you exit the video now, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. Well, obviously, this episode was the most brutal, the most devastating, the most shocking. Pretty much every negative type of emotion that a person can feel is pretty much being felt right now. I think that in many respects, I can appreciate the episode for doing wonderful acting, for doing wonderful directing, writing. I mean, I think it had all that. But of course, we knew that it wasn't going to be an episode that was going to make us feel good. And it kind of, when you were waiting for it the day after the season 6 finale aired, you're kind of just like, man, I want to know. I want to know what happens. What did Negan do? What's it going to do? And then we get here to this point and you watch it and you're just kind of left feeling empty. You're left feeling like, man, this is what I waited for. I got my wish, but boy, it wasn't good. And I think we knew that going into it. But the people that were killed in the episode tonight were Abraham and Glenn. Both ended up being killed in this episode by Negan. And what the whole episode really was, if you want to put a theme to it, it was really about breaking Rick. The whole entire episode really focused on Rick's perspective, seeing things through Rick's eye. I mean, through Rick's eyes, in a sense, we saw Abraham and Glenn get killed and kind of looking at other perspectives too. But it really focused on Rick a lot because, of course, the episode started with Rick threatening to kill Negan. It was from the sneak peek. It was Rick telling Negan, I'm going to kill you, Negan. Not today, not tomorrow, but I'm going to. And Negan doesn't want to put up with that. Negan's basically like, look, I can't stand for this. Negan wants total control. That's the exact point of who he is. He wants to make sure that there is no chance that any person is going to go against him, because otherwise there will be major retribution. That's the point. And Negan showed that in the episode for sure. Going chronologically, basically, it was Abraham who was picked first. And again, I think that Abraham was picked because, number one, he definitely seemed like one of the stronger members of Rick's group. I think that Negan probably saw him as a dangerous threat, somebody that he couldn't control. He also wanted to weaken, I think Alexandria probably figured that Abraham was one of the best fighters. And also just Abraham's stance. Again, I mean, Abraham showed no fear. And if you saw in the season 6 finale, he rose up when Negan stood in front of him and in a sense kind of challenged him. And I think Negan saw that. So, of course, he stands in front of Abraham. He was the one that he picked from Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. And Abraham took it, in a sense, like a person sacrificing himself for the people that they love. He did the this sign, like the I got this sign that he and Sasha shared. He indicated that to her before it happened. So he does that. And then after Abraham is killed, then Negan looks at Rosita and kind of gets that Rosita and Abraham were in some kind of physical relationship. And he starts to taunt her, basically, says, hey, look at Lucille, look at what she did, like waving the bloody bat in front of her face. And Daryl just can't take it. Daryl's had enough of it. Daryl literally stands up, punches Negan right in the face. And from there, they're kind of just like, wait, is Daryl next? And you're like sitting on the edge of your seat wondering, is this going to happen? But Negan decides not to kill Daryl. However, if you go back to the season 6 finale, whenever Glenn freaked out, after Negan was talking to Maggie, kind of indicating that he might kill her, he indicated that was the first one. The first one's free, the first outburst, the first thing like that. He said that one's free, but after that, he will shut that stuff down, no exceptions. Well, Negan kind of takes the punch. He's kind of like, no, 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 no. That's a no-no. What you just did, yeah, that's a no-no. And he ends up saying, I told you the first one was free, but after that, I would shut it down, no exception. So he decides that somebody else is going to die. We don't really realize this until he does, but he ends up striking his bat then suddenly at Glenn and cracks his skull. And then, of course, from the comic books, we get that moment of Glenn with the bloody skull. His eye is popping out of his head, and he's basically trying to talk to Maggie. And he says, Maggie, I will find you, I think is what he said in, like shaken language, because obviously his skull had been fractured. And then Negan, unfortunately, finishes the job. So that is how the kills went down. So it was, in a sense, Daryl acting out that got Glenn killed, unfortunately. And I think that's going to have a big effect on Daryl as the season progresses, which I'll get to what happened with everybody at the end. So again, Negan takes Rick out on the RV. And in a sense, this is a mind game for Negan to really try to break Rick down, because Negan realizes that Rick was a leader. Rick was somebody who really thought that he had figured out this world, that he was in charge, that he was the person that was going to lead a new world. I mean, he makes a lot of comments about how Rick maybe thought that one day he was going to settle down for Sunday breakfast with the people that he loved, which would be the survivors, and that everything was going to be hunky-dory. And in a sense, Negan comes in and just destroys all that. And throughout this time, Rick is definitely having some internal debates, because Negan gives Rick the opportunity to strike him down. He basically hits Rick's hatchet into the table of the RV and says, this is your opportunity. This is your best chance, Rick. I know you want to kill me. If you want to do it, take your chance right now, because this is the time to do it. And Rick does. Rick actually grabs the hatchet. He tries to go after Negan, but Negan has a machine gun, and basically Rick realizes, I can't do that anymore. Obviously, that plan is done. And as Negan drives Rick out to where he takes him, Rick is thinking about everybody. He's basically having flashbacks of moments with his family, in a sense, the different survivors. And I think he's thinking about them, and he's thinking about, the ones that are dead. He's thinking about that, but at the same time, he's also thinking about what might happen to his other family members, the people that are still out there. So Negan takes Rick out to the bridge where they set that fire, those logs that were on the road, and where that library survivor was hung. So you see the Walker body that's hung from the bridge. And Negan basically opens the door and tells Rick, go get my hatchet, because he throws the hatchet out of the RV. So he literally throws Rick out in the middle of all of these walkers, and literally Rick has to fight his way through to try to find it. And of course, there's a lot of smoke everywhere. Part of it, I think, was the dawn, because it was starting to become daylight. But part of me thinks it was also smoke from the wood. So he's like literally pushing walkers away, and he ends up climbing up onto the top of the RV. And we just see Rick break down, because he finds the hatchet. It turns out Negan threw it up there, and he just breaks down. I mean, we see a man that is starting to show the signs of this affecting him, breaking him. He starts to cry. He starts just sitting there looking up into emptiness, realizing what happened. And Negan the whole time is taunting Rick, in a sense, saying, think about it, Rick. Think about what happened, and think about what might happen. So, of course, Rick ends up eventually fighting his way back through. He ends up jumping onto the walker, falling down, and then he basically fights his way through with the hatchet. Negan at times helps Rick by shooting his machine gun out at the walker. So in a sense, also saving Rick. And, we see that Negan really explains himself a little bit to Rick to try to see if he can get him to understand. Negan basically says, look, I want you to serve me. You're, in a sense, now going to work for me. This is what you live for. This is what your new purpose is. You're going to have a purpose. I mean, in a sense, Negan is trying to pitch his new world to Rick, in a sense, pitching what it would be like. He says, look, you're going to be alive. You're going to have your people. You're still going to be a leader. You can still make a great community. You can still, be with everybody, but you're just going to be doing it for me. But he says, hey, isn't that better than, just being dead? And, basically trying to get Rick to understand that concept. But nonetheless, throughout all of the talks that Negan has, he notices the whole time. He goes, I see you, Rick. I mean, I hear you. I hear you saying, yeah, you get it, you get the message. But he basically says, but I don't see it on you. Because Rick still has that whole, look on his face of, I want to kill you, Negan. It's like that look that he always has that just is not what Negan is looking for. So after the little battle, Negan takes Rick back. It's now daylight. And of course, everybody is still alive, but the bodies, of course, are still laying there. And he basically tells Rick, he says, Rick, tell your people, what you're here for, tell them what happened, why did I take you out there? And basically, Rick at this point is shaking. He's on his knees, on very scared. And, Negan's like, speak when I tell you to, trying to show that total control. Well, Rick does, and then Negan does the unthinkable. And at this point, he tells Rick, I want you to do something to show that you get it. And he takes Carl and he basically tells Rick, I want you to cut Carl's left hand off. Well, arm, actually, about at the midpoint. He says, this is how I'll know that you get it. And of course, everybody's trying to say, no, we get it, we get it. Rick's trying to say, no, please don't make me do this. I would rather you do it to me. Rick, of course, saying, look, cut my arm off. I'll do it. You can do it. I would sacrifice myself for that. But, Negan saying, no, this is how I know. If you cut your son's arm off, then I will know that you finally get it. So, of course, he then has everybody point their guns at the rest of the group members and says, look, if he doesn't do this, shoot them all. And then he was going to take Rick back to the sanctuary where they lived, and he would make Rick live for many, many years thinking about that and reliving the moment. So just how cruel he really is. You just see this cruelty, this way of Negan being able to manipulate, to make you fear things. Negan's very good at that. And what ends up happening is he eventually gets Rick to try it. He taunts him. He starts counting down. Rick's begging, pleading, and then finally he raises that axe. Rick's about ready to do it, and Negan stops him and says, do you get it? Do you get it? And Rick goes, yes, I'm here. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to serve you, Negan. I'm here to provide. That's what I'm here for. And you finally get that look on Rick's face, of begging, pleading, of understanding Negan. And Negan is satisfied. He says, okay, I think you get it now. So he basically tells everybody, look, this is a new world. This is a new beginning for all of you, but you're alive. And he says, look, Glenn and Abraham, sacrificed themselves for us to get here to this point. Kind of like throwing it back at them and saying, look, this is a good thing, which is so ironic. But, that's the way that Negan sees things. That's his ironic look that he has on everything that he's doing. He basically says, go get your supplies ready. I will be at your gate in 1 week. And then the Saviors leave. And of course, the rest of the group members are left with Glenn and Abraham's bodies. So from there's a little bit of silence. Oh, and also, when they leave, they take Daryl with them. Negan basically tells Rick, I like Daryl. I think he's a really cool guy, and I want him. So he basically tells Rick, if you don't do what I ask, I will have you cut pieces of Daryl off in front of me to prove just how serious I am. So in a sense, he's taken Daryl and is now using him as bait, in a sense, or using him as a tool to keep Rick on his toes. So Rick is, of course, now at Negan's mercy, and I think he really believes that. And whenever everybody leaves, the group is still there, and basically Maggie's finally the one to break the silence. And out of everything that has still happened, Maggie still wants to fight. I mean, the first words out of Maggie's mouth are, we need to kill them. We need to do this. You need to leave. You need to go back. You need to get everybody, and we need to get them. And Rick just goes, Maggie, they're an army. if we go, we'll all die. And as time goes on, Maggie, in a sense, breaks down with everything, but she still, I think, has that fighting spirit at this point. And she basically just wants to be left alone. She wants to go to the hilltop on her own, everybody else to leave. She doesn't want them out with her anymore. And I think that a lot of that is because she feels guilty. In a sense, she feels responsible for what happened because, number one, she set up the deal with the hilltop. She was the one that negotiated with Gregory. Number two, she being sick was the reason that Rick and the rest of them were out there, except for Daryl, Rosita, Glenn, and Michonne. And in a sense, she was the reason they were out there and got captured. And I think she's taking a lot of the blame, and it's really hurting her at this point. But then Sasha steps up and tells Maggie and the rest of the people, I'll go with Maggie, because they weren't going to leave her. But at that point, I think that what they were going to do was Maggie and Sasha, Sasha's going to take Maggie to the hilltop, and I guess the others are going to go home. That's what I gathered from that last scene. But basically, they're going to take the bodies with them to the hilltop to give them a proper burial. And the very last scene of the episode is Rick getting in the RV. And when he does, he happens to look out and sees a walker coming out of the woods. And there are these two blood spots on the forest ground where Glenn and Abraham's bodies, of course, were, where they bled because of what Negan did. And to add insult to injury, I mean, the walker gets down and starts to, eat the remains that were on the ground. So as if not to kick us further, in a sense, it really ends with a very sad scene of just that walker taking the little last bit of what was left. And I mean, again, just the whole episode is a downer. It started as a downer. It ended as a downer. And I mean, I think that at this point we're feeling a lot of things, but I still am anxious to see what Walking Dead has in store. I think it's going to be a good season. I think it's going to be based around, Abraham and Glenn's deaths. I think that is going to push a lot of the story forward, and I can't wait to see what Walking Dead does. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. I'm going to watch Talking Dead, and then I'm going to make some more videos. I'm going to try to upload as many as I can tonight. If I can't, then tomorrow I'll be uploading more as well. But I have a lot to talk about, so stay tuned. You might see more videos from me tonight. And again, I hope that you're all doing as best as you can. I can only imagine what other fans are feeling at this point, but season 7 is here. I'm still hoping for a great season, and I want to thank each and every one of you that viewed my videos over the summer. I know that I didn't have as many out because of the bar exam, but I did pass. I do have a little bit more free time. I'm working out a schedule, and I'm going to keep making videos, but thank you all for the support that you have given, and I really hope that you all have a very wonderful evening. Thank you.